some diet it's supposed to.
Between drum and disc.
In general, it's two different type of brake designs that you're going to run across. You're either going to run across the disc brakes or the drum brakes. The disc brakes or the drum brakes, and the drum is like two shoes that are connected with each other, and they have a few different components like a few springs, some self-adjusters, and a few different mechanisms that disc brakes up front, or four disc brakes all the way through. Generally, I like the look of 4 disc brakes all the way through, because you'll be able to do a few designs with them, and then, you know, depending on what kind of vehicle you're driving, how you're driving, because if you're driving like to look good and you're not driving fast, then shoot, let's go ahead and put some vinyl on it. You know, this is a show car, Saturday, Sunday, and then you driving Monday through this car where you're looking to go shop. It's up to you. The drum brakes. A lot of times, tractor trailers, if they're the wheel bearing, there's a little, affected the little, affected the little rotor, really need to, and it is potentially lose a whole wheel of stuff. If you lose a whole wheel of stuff, if you haven't to decide any comments, eventually.
So the main difference, disc brakes have
is a brake, whatever you want to call it. I can't think. That is, you may be if you're really gonna try action. Whole if you're really gonna try action. Whole wheel. If you notice that there's an ambient or the bug and them take care of their brakes and things of that nature. Who volume maximum by fluid gonna be a things heat up, and so yeah, let's go ahead and move on. Heat up, and let's go ahead and move on.
A round drum attached to the wheel to slow it down. Round drum attached to the wheel to slow it down. Disc brakes are effectiveness in wet surface is smooth clean a drum brake, making it effectiveness in wet surface is smooth clean a drum brake, making it performance than drum rotor. Imagine playing catch. How F's work, but are to slow down catch. How F's work, but are to slow down or stop a vehicle by friction to the brake pads or shoes to create friction. Brakes are often considered to be better because they dissipate heat more efficiently, provide better stopping power, are more precise, and are easier to maintain for watching.
Dissipates the disc brakes left and right. The disc brakes left and right dance right, and it's the same.
Full
dance right, and it's the same.
Full disc brake system. We have the wheel hub. Assembly. The brake assembly. The brake disc.
Yes. Asking about their something as simple as a lot of you need to get it. That's gonna be any kind of dusty or rusty. Is also if the that may be an brake. It come down to the assuming a casual and that's also in the middle is where you need to tighten up. If they are loose. I would say that it's time to, and if you have to drive, make it all right. It's time to, and if you have to drive, make it all right. Let's go ahead and continue with the vehicle.
The wheel hub assembly consists of two round metal plates, inside which create friction caliper assembly. create friction caliper assembly. It holds the slide back disc and produces
Advanced Auto, or they use the of the
disc and produce the
Advanced Auto, or they use the of the material. It's gonna auto, or they use the of the material. It's gonna be different than somebody material. It's gonna be different than somebody who's gonna be going 80 to 100 miles per hour because they're in a place where it's legal to go 100 miles per hour on the highway. So with that being said,
vibration and noise. Neck and solid mounting to the caliper piston and carrier. An underlayer sandwiched between the backplate and friction material bonds the two together and acts as a thermal barrier to stop heat being transferred from the pad to the caliper. It happens
with base layer and then also the friction material. And so yeah, so it's 4 things, and then generally speaking, if you understand how thick the shim, the backplate, and the underlayer, how thick it is, you kind of can
outside of the brake original position with pressurized hydraulic when the inner
Know that the brake pad clamp a rotating rotor. The rotor is shaped like this. Connect brake pads. Brake pads are the component to rub the rotor. They are connected to the chassis of the vehicle. So, when they're clamped the rotor, brake pads are able to hold the rotor rotation. But how the brake pads clamp the rotor? We have another components. It is the brake caliper. Brake caliper is a brake actuator that control. The hydraulic system basically functions to move energy from the pedal to the actuator more effectively. So, when we press the pedal also pushed. The movement of the there is a piston connects the piston. But why is the piston only on one side? How the caliper clamp the brake pads? The brake caliper you see is a floating type. The floating type, widely applied from city cars to SUVs. In this type, there are 2 caliper pins. So the caliper can freely slide. So the movement of the piston will slide the caliper. When the piston move, the inner brake pad rub the disc. Then the piston continues to move. This second movement will slide the caliper and push the outer brake pad to rub the disc. So, it's easy, right? Subscribe for more.
Whether you like it or not, disc brakes are here to stay when it comes to road bikes, but what are they and how do they actually work? There are 2 main cables attached to the brake levers to activate the braking in a similar way to rim brakes. Hydraulic disc brakes do away with the cable and use hydraulic fluid in a fully sealed line. When you brake, increased pressure is applied to the caliper, which presses the pads against the disc. A disc brake consists of a metal disc or rotor attached to the front and rear wheel hubs. Calipers are attached to the frame or fork. The calipers contain pistons which sit either side of the disc behind the brake pads. The calipers are attached to the brake levers by the brake lines. When you brake, pressure is applied to the pistons, which engages the pads around the disc. As the pads drag against the disc, the wheel is simple. Most discs or rotors are made of high quality stainless steel and range in diameter from 140mm up to 180 for most road and gravel bikes. There are holes in the disc that are popular. Well, there's a few reasons. Disc brakes work well in all weather conditions. The braking surface is further from the ground than rim brakes, the caliper stiff indeed, and the fact that a disc is much smaller than the rim on a bicycle wheel, which means disc brakes bite earlier, giving more braking power during the initial application of the brake. Braking is also more consistent with disc brakes. This increased control, or so-called better modulation, means you can be sure of the resultant braking power you'll get from each pull of the brake lever. There are also some downsides to disc brakes though. Disc brakes add a braking surface via a separate disc. This adds weight compared to bikes fitted with rim brakes. Disc brakes use a different hub compared to standard rim brake wheels, which means you'll need to invest in bikes that looks, well, just better than the inelegant hunks of steel attached to each of your hubs. Are you a rim brake purist or a disc brake convert?
A bunch of videos that are really more teaching us how to do whatever, because 1 or 2 more, and then once we're done with those two, we'll go into a bit of the repair concepts. All right.
Motorcycles and cars are equipped with a very efficient braking system. They are so efficient that your vehicle stops safely within a fraction of a... Today's motorcycles and cars are equipped with a very efficient braking system. They are so efficient that your vehicle stops safely within a fraction. When you pull the brake lever, the brake fluid near the lever gets pressurized. Via a brake line, this pressurized fluid connects. Just saw was developed over the last braking system, or more specifically, let's learn the by your hand on the brake lever is sufficient enough to stop a motorcycle wheel. Engineers achieved it by clever use of Pascal's law. When you move the lever, a small piston also moves. You can see that this piston is connected to the big piston sits near to the brake pad. According to Pascal's law, the pressure at both of the pistons should be equal. This means that the force you applied to the lever end will be multiplied many times at the brake pad end due to sit against the brake disc, thus bringing the wheel to a stop. The disc is directly connected to the wheel. To increase the area further, generally 2 pistons are used. That pistons are there only on one is made possible due to a clever arrangement. The caliper is not fixed, rather it is free to move linearly. A caliper support is fixed to the motorcycle. You can see how the caliper moves up in the cylinder, the floating caliper. So the braking action, brake pads, a huge amount of pressure can be controlled because of the air circulation around it for the outward. The holes around the disc further improve the air circulation. The disc brake mechanism might seem like a simple mechanism, however, of the disc brakes, and these act as an efficient heat soak, saving the brake parts from overheating. Disc brakes are also costlier than drum brakes, and therefore using disc brakes on heavy-duty trucks is not a good idea economically. We hope this video provided you a great insight about the disc brake technology. Thank you for watching the video, and please...
The muck-off disc brake cleaner. This disc brake cleaner does exactly what it says on the tin. It will remove all contaminants like dust and oil, ultimately improving your braking performance. So we want to simply spray it over the rotor inside the caliper and pads. So once you've applied the disc brake cleaner, we want to get ourselves a luxury microfiber cloth and get rid of any excess. So that is a disc brake cleaner, very easy to apply, and now you can forget about...
All right.
Here is the Vivid vinyl that I picked up off Amazon.
Let's go ahead and get back to it. Hey, what's going on? It's been a minute. We were kind of looking at just brake fails. We really didn't go over brake fails, but we understand that the brake discs are better than the drums for easy reasoning as far as the dissipation of heat, as well as being able to deal with the water management as versus the drum. But the drums are still used when it comes down to the big boy trucks. So that's one thing. One sec. So this is what we're gonna do. We are going to essentially talk about when they're old, and we're not talking about drums. We're talking about discs. You replace the disc brakes. Really, when you look at the pads and the material is really not there, especially if it's metal on metal. It's placed the whole wheel hub assembly, but hopefully you didn't let it get that bad. But if the rotors had it may be able to mess with the brake pads when you're switching up the rotor, you always put new pads in. But when you switch out the pads, you might not get new rotor. So that's one thing that is there. So when we are looking at the all right, that's one thing you're gonna. It is the liquid is get pistons to do what it needs to do. Push into the brake rotor. That's gonna happen on all 4 sides, or two parts of your 4 is how you can determine some things are going on as well. So if you are braking and you're going a certain direction, it may be able. So yeah, so what we need to focus on as far as technicians is to see if they have any of the signs that the pads, rotors, the calipers have any kind of issue. And then once you have diagnosed that, it is simply, you really don't want to resurface rotors. Resurfacing rotors, like, I mean, depending on how expensive the rotors are. If the rotors are super expensive, yes, technically, and everything like that, and get some more time in on them. As far as the calipers, when you take out the calipers, a lot of times it's good to start thinking about actually. So that's one thing about that. And then sliding pins are on taking out the pin. If you did their brakes, or if it's you're gonna feel the difference. So yeah, that is part of all of the disc brakes are going through it. We've already talked about that on part 1. So at this moment, we're probably just gonna just ride out for the most part. So let's go ahead and I'm gonna bid y'all a get the wrapping. We're gonna be going into wrapping shortly, and I just highly recommend that if anybody is interested in really getting their car game up and they love cars, come take this ride with us, because eventually we are going to be doing more outdoor activities during the spring and the summer times. You know, a lot of times, like, especially once I get the blue box up and where it need to be, that's where you're gonna be like, oh man. But